Light becomes overwhelming the moment truth is no longer something the mind can fully grasp. Welcome to another story in the series From Wonder to Power, The Journey of Thought. Today I want to explore Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite and how philosophy, after centuries of building systems of knowledge, begins to move toward what cannot be said. Is no longer the restless Athens of Plato, it is a late antique landscape shaped by empires, creeds, and sacred hierarchies. Order has been constructed, theology has been argued, doctrine has been defined. Yet beneath this structure grows a new unease. If truth is divine, can it ever be contained by human language or reason? The question sharpens, you see. What if knowledge reaches its limit precisely where reality becomes most ultimate? Pseudo-Dionysius answers not by rejecting philosophy, but by transforming its direction. Light becomes his central image, not as clarity alone, but as excess. Divine truth does not simply illuminate, it blinds, overwhelms, and dissolves the categories that once organized thought. To approach the highest reality, the soul must move beyond affirmation into negation, beyond certainty into reverent unknowing. This episode begins where order yields to mystery. After centuries of shaping truth into structure, philosophy now faces what cannot be structured. Wonder returns, not as curiosity about the world, but as awe before what exceeds it. Here, thought does not claim power. It learns to bow before the source from which all power flows. Before dawn, in the dim stillness of a monastery, Stephanos stands as the lamps are extinguished one by one. The church does not feel emptier as the light fades. It feels denser, as if presence gathers where visibility retreats. Shapes dissolve, sound softens, certainty withdraws with the glow of the final flame. He has learned that this dimming is not deprivation, but preparation. God is not approached by adding knowledge, but by removing what claims to contain him well. In the writings attributed to Dionysius the Areopagite, every name risks becoming a boundary. To call God good, being, or light is already to measure what exceeds measure. Stephanos does not treat this as a clever idea. He treats it as discipline. The mind must be trained to release what it grasps too quickly. Affirmation comforts, but it also confines. True knowledge begins where language admits its own limit. His prayer changes with this insight. Instead of filling silence with images, he lets them fall away. God is not this. Not that, not even the highest form the mind can imagine. With each negation, attention sharpens. What remains is not emptiness, but a focused openness. Stephanos feels the difference between ignorance and deliberate unknowing. Ignorance wanders without direction. Negation clears a path without pretending to own its destination. Light still shapes this theology, but not as simple clarity. Dionysius speaks of divine light as the condition for all seeing, while itself remaining unseen. Stephanos senses the paradox in worship. As forms recede, presence intensifies. Darkness becomes luminous, not because it reveals, but because it protects what cannot be revealed without distortion. Seen from above, This marks a decisive turn. Negative theology preserves transcendence by refusing to domesticate it. God is not known through resemblance, but through distance rightly held. Knowledge here is not possession, it is proximity without capture. In a world eager to define, this path insists that the highest truth must remain beyond comprehension. When the first light of morning returns and the lamps are relit, Stephanos opens his eyes. The world reappears unchanged, yet he feels altered. He knows less than before, and for the first time senses that this loss is the beginning of wisdom. As the sun rises behind the hills, its light reaches the city in stages. First, the upper walls glow, then the rooftops catch fire with color. Only later do the narrow streets receive what still feels like a distant brightness. Brother Ioannis watches this slow arrival from the monastery steps. Light does not come all at once. It arranges space by degree. Some places receive it fully, others only by reflection. The pattern feels less like coincidence and more like instruction, you see. In the thought of Pseudo-Dionysius, light becomes the clearest symbol of the divine, not because it shows God directly, but because it reveals how God acts. Light gives itself without losing anything. It makes other things visible while remaining beyond the gaze. For Ioannis, this is not poetic language. It is reality made intelligible. Divine light flows through every level of being, granting existence and meaning according to each thing's capacity to receive. This image reshapes how he understands hierarchy. Angels, humans, and material forms are not ordered by strength, but by participation. The higher does not crush the lower, it transmits. Just as sunlight passes easily through clear glass, but struggles through stone, divine presence fills spiritual beings more fully than material ones. Darkness does not signal evil, it marks limitation. It shows where reception weakens, not where goodness disappears. In prayer, Ioannis senses this rhythm inwardly. Sometimes understanding brightens suddenly, as if alignment occurs. At other times, clarity withdraws. He no longer reads this as abandonment. Dionysius teaches that overwhelming light can appear as darkness to limited sight. What exceeds comprehension must be approached indirectly. The soul learns to trust illumination that does not announce itself. Seen from above, the symbol reveals its precision. Light unites transcendence and presence without confusing them. God remains beyond vision, yet nothing is visible without him. Knowledge becomes participation, not possession. To be illuminated is not to grasp the source, but to stand correctly within its radiance. As the city fully wakes and shadows retreat, Ioannis turns back inside. The light follows him only part way. That is enough. In the stillness after Compline, Makarios sits by a small lamp and copies a diagram he knows by heart. Circles within circles, names placed not by command, but by closeness. Seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, virtues, powers, principalities, archangels, angels. He has drawn this pattern many times, yet each repetition feels like discovery. It is not the ink that changes, but the clarity it brings to the world he inhabits, right? For Dionysius, these angelic hierarchies are not a map of heavenly offices. They form a language of order. Makarios understands that the scheme explains not how heaven is ruled, but how reality itself unfolds. Being flows from the divine source through layers of mediation. Each level receives light according to its capacity and passes it onward when aligned correctly. Order is not imposed from above. It is sustained through participation. This vision reshapes how he sees authority on earth. True power is not domination. It is transmission. The higher serves the lower by clarifying and illuminating. The lower honors the higher by receiving without distortion. Disorder begins when this circulation breaks, when a level attempts to hold what was meant to move. Sin appears not simply as rebellion, but as blockage within a living system. Makarios notices this pattern everywhere. In teaching, knowledge must be adapted rather than hoarded. In leadership, command must reveal rather than obscure. Even within the soul, reason, will, and desire must find their proper relation. When hierarchy functions, harmony follows without force. When it collapses, confusion spreads both upward and downward. Seen from a distance, this scheme reveals its ambition. Angelic hierarchies translate ancient philosophical visions of emanation into a Christian account of creation while preserving transcendence. Order becomes luminous rather than mechanical. Reality appears as a cascade of meaning, shaped by reception rather than coercion. When Makarios sets down his pen, the diagram lies complete. Beyond the monastery walls, the world remains fractured and loud. Yet within this hierarchy of light, he finds not escape, but orientation. Once order is seen, it becomes something one must help sustain. In the early morning, as monks gather for prayer and bishops prepare sermons in distant cities, the words of Dionysius move quietly through manuscripts and memory. Isidoros, a young cleric, first hears them as brief quotations woven into familiar teachings. They do not announce themselves as revolutionary. They arrive softly, carrying authority that asks only patience. Over time, he notices how they begin to alter the tone of Christian thought, The change unfolds without rupture. God is no longer approached mainly through definition, but through reverence, disciplined by restraint. Theology learns to speak carefully, to affirm while knowing the limits of affirmation. To speak rightly about God becomes inseparable from knowing when silence protects truth better than explanation. Familiar doctrines remain, yet their expression grows more attentive to mystery as a safeguard rather than a weakness. Liturgy absorbs this shift as well. Light takes on a deeper meaning. Candles, incense, chant, and silence become more than symbols. They shape participation in a cosmic order. Worship is understood not only as remembrance or instruction, but as entry into a rhythm of descent and return. Hierarchy appears not as control, but as mediation. Each role clarifies rather than dominates. In monastic life, discipline gains new depth. Withdrawal from the world is no longer escape, it becomes reorientation. Prayer becomes ascent through unknowing. Study becomes purification of attention. Isidoros sees how this language allows Christian practice to absorb philosophical depth without surrendering revelation. Thought does not rival faith, it refines humility within it. Seen from a distance, the influence spreads across centuries. Dionysius offers Christianity a grammar capable of holding transcendence and presence together. His ideas shape mystics, theologians, and liturgical tradition alike. God remains personal, yet never manageable. Order remains meaningful, yet never closed. As Isidoros sets down his pen, nothing outward seems changed. No new creed has been proclaimed, yet the horizon of understanding has shifted. Christian thought has learned to speak of God without enclosing him, and to organize the world without mistaking order for possession. By the end of this chapter, light no longer appears as simple clarity. It becomes a measure of distance between what can be understood and what must remain beyond grasp. What Dionysius gains is a way of protecting transcendence without abandoning order. Thought learns to approach truth through humility rather than mastery. Knowledge shifts from possession to participation. Hierarchy becomes luminous rather than oppressive. Philosophy, after centuries of building systems, discovers a new discipline. It learns how to stand near what exceeds it without trying to contain it. What is lost is confidence in final definitions. Language no longer promises closure. The mind must accept that its highest achievements are provisional. Certainty gives way to reverence. In this transformation, order itself becomes fragile, because it now depends on alignment rather than control. This moment marks a subtle turning in the journey from wonder to power. Thought withdraws from domination and returns to contemplation. Yet the structures it shapes continue to influence how societies organize meaning, authority, and knowledge. Mystery does not replace order. It surrounds and qualifies it. In the next chapter, philosophy moves from the monastery to the prison cell. Boethius writes while awaiting execution, asking whether happiness can survive the collapse of fortune. There, the search for truth becomes intensely personal, no longer about hierarchy or transcendence alone, but about how the human soul endures suffering without losing its orientation toward the good. If this series has sparked your interest and you wish to delve deeper into the topics discussed, I invite you to the source from which it originates. This book takes you on a journey from the 7 sages of antiquity through the modern revolution with Kant and Hegel to the contemporary philosophical dilemmas of the 20th and 21st centuries. In the book, you will find significantly more details than I could present in the film, as well as space for your own reflection at your own pace. It is this very book that forms the foundation of the entire series you are watching. If you wish to explore the history of philosophy in its full version, get it on Amazon. The link is in the description of this video.